actually quite a good segue to a clip that Galloway asked me to get, and we're going to talk about that first and foremost. But before we get to this clip, I'm going to ask everybody, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other shows wherever you are, whether you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or X. Like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that really good stuff. And like the live stream if you're watching right now. It's going to help the show get out to a lot more people, and we can get a good conversation going in here. If you're here right now, hit us up in the chat, and we'll be happy to talk to you as well. So, speaking of pain-in-the-ass judges, a federal court judge, I forget his name, and frankly, I don't want to even mention him or promote him, issued an order, a district court judge. For those of you who don't know, district court judges are the lowest in the federal system. Doesn't mean that they are not of esteem. It just means that they are the primary entry level into the federal judiciary. And that judge, while a flight of gangbangers was outbound, headed towards Venezuela, ruled that the federal government, the Trump administration, had to turn the plane around and bring these vicious and violent illegal aliens back to the U.S., pal. What do you think?
I think it sucks.
The goal, like, I don't understand, Gene, because like I'm not a lawyer, but I'm somewhat familiar with the Constitution, right? The executive branch under Article 2 gives the president pretty much full purview over foreign affairs, which this could fall under. The Alien Enemies Act, which if he declares an invasion, which he did, and deemed this subset of invaders to be a threat to national security, he can expel them from the country. So I just don't understand where a district judge somewhere in the country that was obviously venue shopped or judge shopped, like that the lefts like to do, they found a sympathetic judge who made a ridiculous order. And I know we have a clip, but the long and short of it is the judge made a verbal order to turn those planes around and bring them back. And there's an argument whether or not the verbal order was prior to them leaving, United States airspace. The administration saying by the time the written order was published or posted, that was clearly they were outside of United States airspace. There was, no legal justification to turn them back around. But I don't know what he thinks was going to happen. Like a DOJ lawyer was going to pick up the phone and call the Air Force and say, patch me through to the pilot and turn it around. Like, I don't know what they thought was going to happen.
This isn't a situation where I can just wave a magic wand and make it go away.
Let's just say a lot of people have opinions about this. Some people out there like Elon Musk calling for judges like this to be impeached, which prompted Chief Justice Roberts to speak out publicly about this, which to me, that's a complete and total mistake. The Chief Justice shouldn't have done that. I think that falls into a judicial no-no in the sense that he is prejudging the argument before it's even made at that point. And I don't think that, while I appreciate him wanting to protect his turf and protect, other judges out there, certainly not the right thing to do. And I think that was a misstep prompted by the backlash, which may be rightfully so. This is not a case I've studied too much, but I am willing to listen to both sides. And Ross, you gave me this clip of Stephen Miller appearing on Fox News reacting to Andrew Weissman from MSNBC, famous for being the second command in the Mueller investigation against Donald Trump. So not exactly the most neutral of opinions here on either side, but I'm sure between the two of us, we can piece together where the true issues lie. I think we're pretty good at issue spotting. So let's get to this clip right here.
This first from somebody who I know is not a favorite of President Trump. This is Andrew Weissman, who's a former top Mueller prosecutor. Of course, it's not a huge surprise that he didn't like this operation. He doesn't think it's legal under the act that you just mentioned, Stephen. Watch.
We're not at war with Venezuela. We're not at war with the gang that is the subject of the executive order. There is no invasion that is going on. And you also have to show that the people you're removing are actually part of that gang, even if there were an invasion or a war. And this statute may, in fact, be very unconstitutional.
So the judge.
All right, so let's leave it there. It seems like Weissman, on first blush here, just listening to his arguments, he doesn't get the modern concept of invasion and how wars have changed. We are now not at war with nation states most of the time. We're at war with international organizations, international terror organizations, like when we talk about going to war with the Taliban or Al Qaeda. Those are international conflicts, and certainly when you have international bad actors like this coming to the country and causing crimes and arguably domestic terrorism, why shouldn't an act from the 1700s apply? After all, the Constitution is a document from the 1700s. That certainly still applies.
Yeah, and once again, Democrats are forced to take an extremely unpopular position. They are defending Venezuelan gang members who are charged with horrific crimes like rape, murder, and child sexual assault and exploitation. It's so bad that people like Charlemagne over on the Breakfast Club actually commented on this.
Deporting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, I understand that.
Shouldn't be a problem, right? Shouldn't be an issue.
So why are folks fighting about gang members being sent away? Like, there's some other deportation cases I'm sure they could be fighting about, like folks who've been in this country for a long time, not committing no crimes, paying taxes, but have gotten caught up in the process. Those are folks they should be fighting for. Why are they raising hell about a gang being deported?
And said, like, I can't believe the Democrats are planting their flag here on this one. This is ridiculous.
Is this the hill I want to die on?
Stephen Miller has some thoughts here, and I'm sure that you are going to be applauding this like crazy, right?
Fantastic. Stephen Miller is the way to do it, people. Listen up.
Well, I'm not prejudging. I haven't seen the clip. I just downloaded it and put it into the system here. So let's hear this.
The judge has to be convinced that these individuals aren't really, I mean, it's a huge group, and, you know, nobody's going to miss any of these people, but they're quantifiable. So can you prove that these individuals were linked with Tren de Aragua and that Tren de Aragua is part of a Maduro operation, Stephen?
So first of all, Andrew Weissman is an absolute moron. He is a moron, and he is a fool, and he's a degenerate. Andrew Weissman.
Coming in too hot.
Okay.
A degenerate.
so just from a point of advocacy here, if this is the way you're going to start your argument, to me, it sounds like you might have a weak argument. I'm trying to be objective here. You know what side I fall on.
So before you play the rest, Gene, obviously Weissman, there's a history there.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
It's not like, so it gets better. He has substance here.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that this is the difference between a political argument and let's say a legal argument. The political argument, this might charge up your base, this might be considered red meat out there, but he's really not said anything substantively. I want to get to the substance, Stephen. Let me know what you're saying here.
Has devoted his career to putting innocent Americans in jail, taking away their civil liberties. He was involved in the Mueller coup against a democratically elected President Donald J. Trump. Weissman should never be on TV anywhere. He should hang his head in eternal shame for what he's done to this country. And now he's up there shilling for people who rape and murder Americans. That's who Andrew Weissman is. I met the mother of Jocelyn Nungary, Alexis Nungary, who President Trump honored at the State of the Union, named a national wildlife refuge after her daughter. Tren de Aragua terrorists took that 12-year-old angel and they tortured her to death. They sexually assaulted her. They stripped her and they dumped her body in a river. That's who President Trump has deported from this country. Behind every single one of those terrorists was another future rape victim, another future sex trafficking victim, another future murder victim. And most importantly, every one of those people was here illegally. They have no right to be in this country for 1 second longer. They are illegal aliens, they are foreign terrorists, they are alien enemies. And the law at the heart of this issue was signed in the founding generation of this country, the same generation that wrote our Constitution. People say, oh, it's an 18th century law. You know what else is an 18th century law? The Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights of the United States.
Hey, I said that. I'm pretty spot on. I haven't heard a substantive argument yet, though, Galloway. I appreciate the anger and I appreciate the fiery nature of Stephen Miller, even though some see it as off-putting. But he's choosing not to answer the question of where is, and these are baseline questions. I'm sure that we can prove it. Where is the proof that they are parts of this gang? Is there a connection to Maduro? I think as a matter of law, those are elements that have to be proven here, no?
If you looked up, I don't know if you've actually read the text of the law, it doesn't say you have to be at war with a country necessarily. That's like one clause, and then it followed by or an invasion and posing a threat to national security. So like that they check those boxes.
You make a good point. Let's look up the law and see what it says. Let's see if I can pull it up here.
A few moments later.
Okay.
So while you're looking that up, Gene, for anyone who wants to actually read the executive order, this was one of the best executive orders I've ever read, because every part of that executive order ties back in to the text of the actual law that they're using to deport these people. And it gives example after example of why it's complying with this law.
More on that later.
Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government, and the president makes public proclamation of the event, all natives, citizens, denizens, or subjects of the hostile nation or government being of the age of 14 years and upward, who shall be within the United States and not actually naturalized, shall be liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. Now, in that first sentence, pal, the invasion would have to be done by, let me just find the section here again. It would have to be done by any foreign nation or government. That might be the rub here. You would have to connect Tren de Aragua to the nation of Venezuela. Do you see what I'm saying there in that respect?
Yeah, so if you can, I'm trying to find it now as we speak. We need to pull up Trump's executive order where he does tie them. They fund Tren de Aragua. They participate in the Maduro government. They are intertwined. They are a Venezuelan gang. They're not a gang that spontaneously was popped up here. They came from there. And President Trump did declare an invasion from these countries.
Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to start sharing another screen. And this is, I believe, the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua. Let's take a look at what it says here. So Tren de Aragua, designated as a foreign terrorist organization, thousands of members, many of whom have unlawfully infiltrated the United States, operates in conjunction with Cartel de las Soles, the Nicolas Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise based in Venezuela. Bingo! Tren de Aragua is closely aligned with and indeed has infiltrated the Maduro regime, including its military and law enforcement apparatus. This has to be backed up, I'm sure, by State Department and DOD and other national security agencies, all those, alphabet soup organizations. Tren de Aragua soon significantly, while Tariq El Asiami served as governor of Aragua between 2000. Oh, he has chapter and verse here. I agree with you, pal. Like Asami, Nicolas Maduro, who claims to act as Venezuela's president and asserts control over the security forces and other authorities in Venezuela, also maintains close ties with regime-sponsored narco-terrorists. So they wouldn't be saying this if they couldn't back it up, pal. I do concede that point. So therefore, the part of the Alien Enemies Act that we just referenced would be fulfilled, presumably if the United States government can show this connection between Maduro and Tren de Aragua.
Case closed.
But if you read the actual law again, nowhere in there does it say that these people need to be brought before a court. It's all at the discretion of the president. Now, there's some questions whether or not that's constitutional, but it's never been challenged. It's full discretion of the president to declare the invasion and to determine who is under it and who gets deported and how and detained for how long.
Right, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely, and moreover, the president is authorized in any such event by his proclamation thereof or other public act to direct the conduct to be observed on the part of the United States towards the aliens who became so liable, the manner and degree of the restraint to which they shall be subject, and in what cases, and upon what security their residence shall be permitted, and to provide for the removal of those who, not being permitted to reside within the United States, refuse or neglect to depart therefrom, and to establish any other regulations which are found necessary in the premises and for the public safety. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. It gives the president very wide-ranging abilities, as you think a president would have in the event of a foreign invasion. It seems to be pretty logical to me.
Yeah, I mean, even if there was going to be a question, to be brought before the courts, I find it hard to believe that a district judge can just unilaterally tell the executive branch to turn planes around and bring people back until a district court judge makes a decision. Like, that to me is insane. Let it work its way through the process, and eventually it's going to have to go to the Supreme Court, right? Like, this is clearly a constitutional issue. On its face, it looks like he's obeying the law. If there's a question as to whether or not that law is in fact unconstitutional, well, then I'm pretty sure it's going to go over to the Supreme Court. And what are we just going to do? Allow an invasion to happen in the meantime?
Right. I mean, the whole point of the law is to give the president the powers and the ability to act swiftly in the face of a foreign invasion. And I think this judge, I hate when these federal judges make these decisions out of their portion of a judicial district that then apply nationwide. We saw a lot of this during the lawfare of the first Trump administration as well. There's got to be a way to get these decisions moved up the ladder quickly, which stays of enforcement unless and until it gets affirmed or overturned later on. Go ahead.
Which, by the way, you had mentioned what Chief Justice Roberts said when he opined on whether or not some of these judges should be impeached. And yes, he did overstep, not only for the reason you mentioned, where he's like prejudging a case. First of all, impeachment, as we have been educated by the Democratic Party in Trump's first term, is a political process carried out by the Congress. It has nothing to do with the court system, right? The Chief Justice actually presides over the hearing in the Senate, but he has no real role, right? He's just there. So he should have never mentioned that. And if Chief Justice Roberts really felt strongly about what he is saying, there is a fix. There's two ways to do it, really. Congress can pass a law limiting jurisdiction and certain aspects of what the court can and cannot do, or the Supreme Court can give guidance to district courts on nationwide injunctions and other things that affect the entire nation.
So where do we go from here?
I think at this point, Congress needs to act to sort of corral these federal district court judges from these nationwide TROs and provisional remedies that they love to grant under Donald Trump. And to be fair, it happened under Biden as well. I don't think that should happen at this point. There's got to be a mechanism within our legislature to limit the powers of these provisional remedies. They got to go back into they got to go back to Civ Pros, got to go back to civil procedure class, go through the federal rules of civil procedure, and figure out the powers that the court has to grant these provisional remedies when it comes to restraining the federal government from using constitutional powers. I don't have the solution to that, but there's got to be that discussion, especially now in these next 2 years when you have Trump, the House, and the Senate all working together.
Well, there's also got to be repercussions, right? Like, okay, you can say impeachment might not be okay for federal judges. I disagree with that. I understand the high crime and misdemeanors aspect of an impeachment and a removal, But what other recourse is there? Let's say you have and we do. You have lots of rogue federal judges that do not believe in reading the Constitution. They just believe in doing whatever the left kind of like brainwashed them into believing. So what is the repercussion? They have lifetime appointments. So during good behavior, what is good behavior? If they're not following the Constitution and they're overturned consistently or they're overstepping their bounds, I think impeachment should be on the table for federal judges, or we need to amend the Constitution to create some other mechanism where they don't serve for lifetime tenure. That's crazy.
Well, there are ways that other nations deal with their judiciaries that are kind of interesting. For instance, when I went to South Korea, and I had to handle a case in South Korea for a couple of weeks, a couple of years back, and I found that what they do, because they're such a smaller country than us, is they actually rotate their judges out in certain year terms, from being a lower court judge to an appellate court judge to even going to their constitutional court. And they rotate them around and through. And then they also have mandatory retirement at 65. So those are just some examples of how at least one of the place does it. I just appeared before an octogenarian judge who loved to hear himself speak for hours. I don't know if he should still be hearing cases, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's not a perfect system, to be perfectly honest, but Trump and Republicans have an opportunity here to sort of fix that system going forward. Whether they do or not remains to be seen. But at least in this particular case, the battleground being set up here is going to be about the application of a law from the 1700s and how it would apply to a modern 21st century problem when it comes to geopolitical interactions, international relations, and this new sort of warfare that we have, where it's not necessarily nations that are at war, but factions are at war involved with nations, and it gets much stickier than the law contemplated back in the 1700s.
It certainly does. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and it should work its way through the courts. But in the meantime, like the Constitution is not a suicide pact type of thing. Do we just allow an invasion until something works its way through the appellate system? Like, that's what a lot of judges say. Like, oh, well, we'll just have to, let it work its way through. We don't fast track everything to the Supreme Court. I don't know. I think the Supreme Court should have original jurisdiction on anything that is a constitutional issue that could affect the whole country.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about the ramifications of, the stay and the provisional remedy that was granted here. It's not like these people are going to be let out of whatever holding they're in. They're going to remain in if I don't even know if the plane did turn around. But let's say it did. Plane turns around, returns back to the United States. It's not like these people are put back into the world. They're not put back into our cities, our neighborhoods. They're still being held. We're bearing the cost of holding them. And maybe that's something that should be addressed here. But it's not like the ramifications are that there's anything immediate that must be done. There's no there's an emergency, but there's no impending doom. There's no actual significant emergency.
I would disagree, Gene, because we don't know, were they detained prior to them getting on that plane, or were they scooped up recently because of their affiliation with TDA? If they weren't pending any other charges and they didn't have a deportation order through the normal immigration process, then there might not be any legal means to hold them. Well, you might have to release them back into the street.
That's not true, because as we learned with the case of Mahmoud Khalil, you don't necessarily have to have committed a crime in order to be detained pending a deportation proceeding. So the only prejudice here is the cost of detaining, and many jurisdictions, including here in New York, say that irreparable harm or any sort of pending emergency cannot be money. You see what I'm saying? So I think they're still going to be able to be held. And I think that the only thing that this is costing us is money and time. If you like that clip from our new show, Behind Enemy Lines, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other shows, and tune in live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.